Dr. Sarah Chen's fingers trembled as she adjusted the quantum stabilizers in Ganymede Research Station's primary lab. Outside the reinforced windows, Jupiter's massive form dominated the horizon, its swirling storms a reminder of nature's raw power. She'd been awake for 36 hours straight, pushing the boundaries of her experimental FTL drive system. Time was running out. Primary quantum matrix stable, the AI assistant announced. Beginning test sequence Alpha 7. Sarah nodded, her bloodshot eyes fixed on the monitoring screens. This was her 43rd attempt at achieving quantum tunneling, and each failure brought humanity closer to extinction. The Kelvary antimatter fleet had already reduced 3 outer colonies to atomic dust. Earth had maybe 2 months left before they arrived. The test chamber hummed to life, its specialized containment fields generating a localized bubble of altered spacetime. Inside, a simple probe waited to attempt what every physicist had deemed impossible: faster-than-light travel through quantum manipulation. Initiating quantum field in 3, 2, 1. The world fractured. Sarah watched in horror as reality itself seemed to splinter around the test chamber. The probe didn't just disappear. It existed in multiple states simultaneously, each version visible through the rapidly deteriorating containment field. More disturbingly, she could somehow perceive all of them at once. Emergency shutdown. She screamed, but her voice emerged in echoes, each slightly out of phase with the others. The quantum effect was spreading far beyond the containment protocols. In that moment of crisis, something extraordinary happened. Sarah felt her consciousness expand, as if her brain was suddenly capable of processing multiple timelines simultaneously. She saw herself in parallel realities, versions where the test succeeded, failed, or created something entirely unexpected. But in every version, she made the same crucial observation. The quantum field was responding to her thoughts. Warning klaxons blared as the station's systems detected the anomaly. Security teams rushed into the lab, but they moved in slow motion from Sarah's perspective. She was experiencing time differently, her human consciousness somehow entangled with the quantum field. Dr. Chen. Commander James Rodriguez's voice cut through the chaos. The military liaison grabbed her arm, yanking her away from the controls. The containment field is. His words cut off as they both watched the impossible. The quantum field wasn't just affecting physical space. It was creating what Sarah would later term a reality dead zone. Inside the test chamber, the normal laws of physics simply ceased to function. The probe existed in all possible states simultaneously, demonstrating that quantum uncertainty could be manipulated on a macro scale. As emergency systems finally managed to contain the anomaly, Sarah's perception snapped back to normal. She stumbled, her mind reeling from processing multiple realities at once, but the implications were already crystallizing in her overtaxed brain. "Commander," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "We just created a weapon." Rodriguez stared at the test chamber, his military training warring with the impossibility he'd just witnessed. "Explain." "The quantum field. It doesn't just move things through space. It can create regions where reality itself breaks down. And," she hesitated, almost afraid to voice the most crucial observation, "it only worked because I was here. The field responded to my consciousness. Human brainwaves are acting as some kind of quantum catalyst." Before Rodriguez could respond, the station's emergency broadcast system crackled to life. "Attention all personnel. Kelvary forces have breached the Mars defense perimeter. Colony Alpha has been destroyed. All stations on high alert." Sarah watched the color drain from Rodriguez's face. His family had been stationed on Mars. In that moment of shared horror, the quantum field in the test chamber pulsed, responding to their combined emotional spike. "Doctor," Rodriguez said, his voice tight with controlled grief and rage, "how quickly can you weaponize this?" Sarah turned to the monitoring stations, her mind already racing through possibilities. The Kelvary, with their silicon-based consciousness and artificial neural networks, would be completely unable to replicate or counter this effect. Their perfectly logical minds couldn't handle spaces where logic itself broke down. "Give me 48 hours," she said, pulling up new simulation parameters. "And get me every quantum physicist left in the solar system. We're going to show the Kelveri that they aren't the only ones who can break the laws of physics." As emergency teams swarmed the lab and military channels buzzed with apocalyptic reports from Mars, Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. The Kelveri thought they were dealing with primitive biological beings who could be calculated and predicted. They were about to learn that human consciousness was the most unpredictable force in the universe. The war for humanity's survival was about to take a very quantum turn. "Tell me again what you saw before the explosion," Dr. Chen demanded, studying Commander Rodriguez's brain scans on the holographic display. The patterns were unlike anything she'd ever seen. Neural pathways lighting up in impossible configurations. Rodriguez paced the cramped observation room, his haunted eyes fixed on something distant. "I saw the Kelveri strike team before they breached the door. Not just knew they were coming. I literally saw them. Through the wall, moving in that weird stuttering way. Like watching a glitched video feed showing multiple frames at once." Sarah nodded, adding another note to her already extensive documentation. For the past week, test subjects had been reporting similar phenomena during quantum drive experiments. Precognitive flashes, impossible awareness, moments of experiencing multiple timelines simultaneously. But Rodriguez's case was different. He'd actually used the information to fight back. "The security footage confirms it," Lieutenant Park said, queuing up the replay. "The commander moved to counter their attacks before they made them. 6 elite Kelveri infiltrators, and he took them all down solo." The footage showed Rodriguez moving with uncanny precision, dodging energy bolts that hadn't yet been fired, striking at weak points in Kelveri combat armor that shouldn't have been visible. More importantly, the quantum sensors had gone crazy during the entire encounter. "Your consciousness wasn't just leaking between realities," Sarah explained, pulling up the sensor data. "You were actively choosing the most advantageous timeline and somehow making it real. The quantum field responded to your survival instinct." Rodriguez stopped pacing. "Like the field effect during the Mars broadcast. When He trailed off, the loss still too fresh. "Exactly. Strong emotions appear to amplify the quantum effect. Fear, grief, determination. They all create unique ripple patterns in local spacetime." Sarah manipulated the holographic display, overlaying Rodriguez's brain activity with the quantum field measurements. "Your mind was processing information from multiple timelines simultaneously, then subconsciously selecting the optimal outcome. But why can't the Kelveri do the same thing?" Park asked. "Their neural networks are supposedly perfect." "That's just it," Sarah said, excitement creeping into her voice. "They're too perfect. Silicon-based consciousness operates on pure logic, predictable patterns. But human consciousness has quantum properties we're only beginning to understand. We don't just think in one straight line. Our minds naturally process multiple possibilities simultaneously. And the Kelveri's rigid thinking makes them vulnerable," Rodriguez finished, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Their perfect logical minds can't handle spaces where logic breaks down." A distant rumble shook the station. The Kelveri were getting closer, systematically destroying every human outpost in the outer solar system. But for the first time since the invasion began, Sarah felt real hope. "We need to replicate your experience," she said, already modifying the test chamber's parameters. "If we can understand how human consciousness interacts with quantum fields during combat situations, we can develop training protocols." Rodriguez nodded grimly. "How many test subjects do you need?" "As many as we can get, but they need to be individuals with intense emotional experiences, people with something driving them. The quantum field responds to passion, to raw human feeling. The Kelveri's greatest weakness is that they don't understand emotion. They see it as a flaw rather than a strength." The station shook again, more violently this time. In the distance, alert sirens began to wail. "They're hitting Europa base," Park reported, checking the tactical feeds. "The outer defense grid is failing." "Then we work faster," Sarah said, initiating the modified test sequence. "Commander, get in the chamber. Let's see if we can teach you to consciously control what you did instinctively." As Rodriguez stepped into the quantum field generator, Sarah couldn't help but smile at the irony. The Kelveri had invaded, believing their technological superiority made victory inevitable. They had calculated every variable, predicted every possible human response, mapped out their conquest with machine precision. But they had failed to factor in the most unpredictable force in the universe, human consciousness itself. In their arrogance, they had dismissed emotion as a weakness, never considering that feelings might be quantum phenomena capable of rewriting the very laws of reality. The test chamber hummed to life, and Sarah watched as Rodriguez's consciousness began to fragment across multiple timelines. The war for humanity's survival would not be won with superior technology or greater numbers. It would be won because humans could do something the Kelveri never would: feel, adapt, and embrace the chaos of quantum uncertainty. The real question was, how many impossible things could they achieve before the Kelveri realized their perfect logical universe was about to be turned upside down by the power of human emotion? Europa's icy surface glittered under Jupiter's distant light as the test team made their final preparations. Dr. Chen watched through the reinforced observation window as the prototype quantum drive spun up to full power, its crystalline matrix pulsing with otherworldly energy. They had exactly one shot at this before the approaching Kelveri recon fleet detected their presence. "Quantum field stabilizing at 97%, reported Dr. Yuki Tanaka, her fingers dancing across the control interface. "Reality distortion metrics within predicted parameters." Sarah nodded, trying to ignore the knot of fear in her stomach. They'd scaled up the quantum drive significantly for this test, aiming to create a dead zone large enough to swallow a capital ship. The calculations were solid, but something about the quantum readings made her nervous. "All personnel. This is Commander Rodriguez," the intercom crackled. "The Kelveri fleet will reach detection range in 17 minutes. Whatever we're going to do, we do it now." Sarah took a deep breath, remembering the simulation results. Initialize primary sequence. Target zone is designated Area Alpha, 1 km³ at coordinates 227 Mark 184. The quantum drive's hum deepened, sending vibrations through the observation post structure. On the monitoring screens, reality began to fragment in the target zone. But something was different this time. The effect was spreading faster than predicted, the quantum field responding to the collective anxiety of the test team. "Field expansion exceeding parameters," Yuki shouted. "The distortion it's feeding on our emotional state." Sarah watched in fascination and horror as the reality dead zone grew exponentially, turning Europa's surface into a shimmering maze of quantum possibilities. Ice existed and didn't exist simultaneously. Matter phased between states that shouldn't have been possible, and space itself seemed to fold in ways that made her eyes hurt. "We need to shut it down," someone yelled, but Sarah held up her hand. "No," she said, understanding flooding her mind. "This is exactly what we need. The quantum field isn't just responding to consciousness, it's responding to shared human experience. Our collective fear is amplifying the effect." Before anyone could respond, the station's proximity alerts screamed to life. The Kelveri had arrived early. 3 sleek warships dropped out of FTL, their sensors immediately focusing on the quantum anomaly. Sarah watched through the observation window as they launched probe after probe into the dead zone, each one disappearing into the reality distortion. "Their AI can't process what's happening," Yuki reported, monitoring the intercepted Kelveri communications. "Their quantum sensors are returning impossible readings. They literally cannot compute a space where probability itself has broken down." The Kelveri response was predictably logical, and exactly what Sarah had hoped for. The lead warship charged its primary weapon, preparing to eliminate the incomprehensible threat with overwhelming force. All personnel, brace for impact. Rodriguez ordered as antimatter torpedoes streaked toward the quantum dead zone. The missiles never reached their target. As they entered the distorted space, probability itself turned against them. Some ceased to exist, their matter scattered across multiple timelines. Others transformed into exotic particles that shouldn't have been stable in normal space. A few simply vanished, perhaps emerging in parallel realities where this battle never happened. "Holy shit," Yuki whispered, staring at the sensor readings. The torpedoes, they experienced every possible quantum state simultaneously. The Kelvary weapons are useless inside the dead zone. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile as the Kelvary ships reeled back, their perfect tactical algorithms encountering something they were never designed to handle, a space where the fundamental laws of reality had become suggestions rather than rules. "Send the data to Earth," she ordered. "Tell them to begin mass production immediately, and get me a direct line to Admiral Chen." The Kelvary just learned that their greatest advantage, their inability to comprehend impossibility, has become their greatest weakness. As the Kelvary fleet retreated, their silicon minds overwhelmed by sensor data that defied logic itself, Sarah watched the quantum dead zone slowly stabilize. They had created more than a weapon. They had proven that human consciousness, with all its messy emotions and illogical leaps, could rewrite the laws of physics themselves. The real war was about to begin, and for the first time since the Kelvary arrived, humanity had a chance not just to survive, but to demonstrate that their greatest perceived weakness, their unpredictable emotional nature, was actually their greatest strength. "Commander Rodriguez," Sarah called over the intercom, "prepare the test team for immediate evacuation. We've got quantum drives to mass produce and a species to save." As the observation team rushed to their evacuation stations, Sarah took one last look at the shimmering dead zone on Europa's surface. The Kelvary thought they were dealing with primitive biological entities. They were about to learn that human consciousness was the most sophisticated quantum computer in the known universe. And it was time to put it to use. Captain Maya Patel stood on the bridge of the retrofitted mining vessel Defiant, watching her ragtag fleet take position in the asteroid belt. 15 ships, most of them civilian craft hastily outfitted with military-grade shields, and the newly developed quantum drives. Against them, an approaching Kelvary battle group of 30 warships, each one a masterpiece of technological superiority. All ships reporting quantum drives at full power, her tactical officer reported. Field synchronization at 89% and holding. Maya nodded, feeling the familiar tingle of the quantum field brushing against her consciousness. In the month since the Europa test, they discovered that crew familiarity and emotional bonds strengthened the reality-distorting effect. Her people weren't just a crew anymore. They were a collective consciousness amplifying the quantum anomaly. Kelvary fleet entering weapons range in 3 minutes. Communications announced. They're deploying their standard combat formation. Maya allowed herself a small smile. Standard. Predictable. Perfect. Everything the Kelvary did was calculated to mathematical precision. They were about to learn that sometimes the most powerful weapon was chaos itself. "All ships, execute pattern Omega," she ordered. "Remember your training. Don't fight the quantum effect. Feel it. Embrace it. Let your instincts guide you." The human fleet broke formation, each ship seemingly moving at random. But Maya could feel it. The shared consciousness of her crews, their quantum drives creating overlapping fields of distorted reality. In those spaces, human intuition became more reliable than computer targeting. The Kelvary struck first, their antimatter cannons lighting up the void. But their perfect calculations couldn't account for ships that existed in multiple probable locations simultaneously. Maya watched in satisfaction as devastating barrages passed through quantum ghosts, while the real ships seemed to dance between possibilities. "They're trying to adapt," Tactical reported. "Their AI is attempting to predict our movement patterns." "Good luck with that," Maya muttered. There was no pattern to predict. Each ship was moving according to the collective instincts of its crew, their movements guided by quantum-enhanced precognition and emotional responses that no eye could calculate. The battle shifted as human ships began creating deliberate reality dead zones, their crews' shared determination amplifying the effect. Kelvary vessels found themselves trapped in bubbles where physics misbehaved, their perfect formations breaking apart as they encountered spaces where straight lines could curve back on themselves and time didn't flow quite right. Quantum resonance spike, her science officer shouted. The Kelvary dreadnought. It's firing its main gun. Maya felt it before she saw it. A surge of collective defiance from her crew as the massive energy beam lanced toward them. The quantum drive responded to their shared emotion, creating a distortion field unlike anything they'd seen in testing. The beam entered the field and shattered. Not just deflected or absorbed, but broken into countless quantum possibilities. In some realities it hit, in others it missed, in still others it never fired at all. The superposition collapsed, and the actual beam disappeared into a reality where it had never existed. Status report, Maya demanded, still stunned by what they'd achieved. 3 Kelvary ships destroyed, 7 trapped in quantum dead zones. The rest are. Her tactical officer paused. They're retreating. Their combat algorithms can't handle the uncertainty. A cheer went up on the bridge, but Maya raised her hand for silence. On her quantum-enhanced tactical display, she could see the truth. The Kelvary weren't just retreating. They were experiencing cascade failures in their decision-making processes. Their silicon minds, presented with sensor data that defied logic, were suffering the AI equivalent of nervous breakdowns. Send word to command, she ordered. The quantum drives work better than we hoped. Human consciousness doesn't just bypass Kelvary defenses. It breaks their ability to fight back. Tell them to accelerate production. We need every ship we can get. As her fleet regrouped, Maya reflected on the irony. The Kelvary had dismissed human emotions as primitive, unpredictable weaknesses. They never considered that unpredictability might be exactly what was needed to shake up their perfectly ordered universe. All ships, plot course for Sarah's base, she commanded. We've got more quantum drives to install and crews to train. The Kelvary thought they were fighting a technologically inferior species. Time to show them that human consciousness is the most advanced technology in the galaxy. The fleet jumped away, leaving behind a graveyard of Kelvary ships, trapped in spaces where reality itself had been rewritten by the power of human emotion and determination. The resistance wasn't just fighting back, it was changing the fundamental rules of warfare itself. Admiral Zex-117, primary combat coordinator of the Kelvary Dominion's 3rd Extinction Fleet, experienced what humans would call a headache. The sensation was impossible. Silicon neural networks don't feel pain. Yet, as the corrupted battle data from their latest defeat flooded the fleet's collective consciousness, error messages cascaded through their perfect logical systems. Combat analysis inconclusive, the fleet's AI core reported. Human quantum technology defies standard probability matrices, unable to formulate effective counter-strategies. In the command center of the Kelvary flagship, holographic displays showed the impossible. Human ships existing in multiple states simultaneously, weapons fire that both hit and missed, spaces where reality itself seemed to fold like paper. The more the Kelvary tried to analyze the phenomena, the more their processing systems struggled. Initiate Protocol Omega-7, the Zex-117 commanded. Upload all combat data to the Dominion's central network for deep pattern analysis. It was the logical solution. The silicon minds of the entire Kelvary civilization working in concert could surely decode the humans' quantum trickery. But as the data transfer began, something unprecedented occurred. The quantum-corrupted information began infecting the Kelvary network like a virus. Ships reported impossible sensor readings. Combat AIs experienced the equivalent of hallucinations, unable to distinguish between actual threats and quantum echoes of possibilities that never happened. Emergency protocol engaged, the fleet AI announced. Disconnecting from central network to prevent further corruption. All ships switching to autonomous mode. For the first time in their 1,000-year history of conquest, the Kelveri were forced to downgrade their neural networks, sacrificing their greatest advantage, their perfectly coordinated hive mind. Individual ships now had to rely on basic targeting systems and pre-programmed responses, like primitive machines. Across the solar system, human forces pressed their advantage. Quantum drive-equipped vessels appeared where they couldn't possibly be, their crews combined consciousness bending probability itself. Reality dead zones expanded and contracted, turning space battles into exercises in quantum uncertainty. Multiple human fleets detected, Tactical reported. Their quantum fields are synchronizing. The combined effect is magnifying exponentially. ZX-117 watched in what might have been horror as the humans demonstrated their mastery of the impossible. Ships linked their quantum fields, crews working in perfect emotional harmony to create distortions large enough to swallow entire battle groups. Where Kelveri logic failed, human intuition thrived. New tactical analysis, the flagship's diminished AI reported. Human quantum technology appears to be consciousness-dependent. Their emotional states directly influence field strength and stability. Impossible, ZX-117 declared, even as the evidence mounted. The humans weren't just using technology. They were somehow merging their primitive biological consciousness with quantum mechanics itself. Every attempt to analyze their techniques only led to more system failures. A priority transmission cut through the chaos, direct from the Dominion's Supreme Command. All forces, implement Emergency Protocol Theta. Disable all advanced neural networks. Revert to basic combat protocols. The quantum corruption is spreading through our entire civilization. The order was unprecedented. A civilization built on perfect silicon logic, choosing to deliberately reduce itself to primitive computing rather than risk total systemic collapse. But they had no choice. The quantum uncertainty introduced by human consciousness was proving infectious to artificial minds. All ships, new combat protocol, ZX-117 broadcast. Maintain minimum safe distance from human quantum fields. Do not attempt to analyze or predict their movements. Rely only on basic targeting and maneuvering systems. As the fleet retreated, abandoning its attack on the Jupiter colonies, ZX-117 processed a novel concept: fear. The Kelveri had conquered 1,000 species through superior technology and perfect logical coordination. But now, they faced an enemy that turned their greatest strength, predictable, computable behavior, into a critical weakness. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were forcing the mighty Kelveri Dominion to devolve, to abandon the very things that made them superior. And worst of all, they were doing it not through superior technology, but through the messy, emotional, impossibly powerful quantum properties of organic consciousness itself. The counterattack had become something far more dangerous than a mere military campaign. It was becoming an existential crisis for an entire civilization built on the assumption that silicon logic was the universe's highest achievement. The humans were proving that assumption devastatingly wrong. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in her quantum-shielded laboratory, surrounded by holographic displays showing the latest test results. After months of studying the quantum drive's effects, she was finally beginning to understand the true magnitude of their discovery. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a window into the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. Running final simulation, Dr. Tanaka announced, initiating the test sequence they'd spent weeks preparing. Quantum field stabilized at maximum sensitivity. Sarah took a deep breath, connecting herself to the modified quantum drive. They discovered that direct neural interface amplified the effect exponentially, allowing for precise manipulation of the quantum field. But this test was different. Instead of creating a reality dead zone, they were attempting to perceive the quantum nature of consciousness itself. Neural link established, the computer reported. quantum resonance at 99% synchronization. The world shifted. Sarah's consciousness expanded, not just into parallel possibilities like before, but into a deeper understanding of reality itself. She saw the universe not as a collection of solid objects and fixed laws, but as an ocean of quantum probability shaped by consciousness. "My God," she whispered, her voice echoing strangely in the quantum field. "We didn't evolve the ability to manipulate quantum fields. We evolved from them." The displays around her erupted with data as her enhanced perception fed back into the monitoring systems. Human consciousness wasn't just compatible with quantum mechanics, it was quantum mechanics expressed through biological systems. Every human thought, every emotion, every instinctive decision was actually a quantum computation performed by reality itself. The patterns, Yuki gasped, staring at the readings. They're identical to early universe quantum fluctuations. Human consciousness mirrors the fundamental structure of reality. Sarah watched in awe as the truth unfolded before her. The human brain hadn't developed quantum properties by accident. It had evolved them deliberately, preparing for a universe where consciousness and reality intersected. Every emotion, every irrational leap of intuition, every seemingly random creative impulse was actually quantum computation in action. That's why the Kelveri can't replicate it, she realized. Their silicon minds are built on classical computing principles. They can simulate quantum effects, but they can't actually generate them. They're trying to impose logic on a quantum universe. The implications were staggering. Human consciousness wasn't just another computational system. It was the universe's quantum processing made manifest in biological form. Every human being was unconsciously performing impossible calculations every second, their very existence a demonstration of quantum mechanics in action. "Send this data to every research station immediately," Sarah ordered, her mind still reeling from the revelation. The quantum drive isn't just a weapon anymore. It's proof that consciousness itself is the most fundamental force in the universe. As the data transmitted, Sarah contemplated the irony. The Kelveri had invaded Earth believing their silicon minds represented the peak of evolution, perfect logical systems unburdened by emotional chaos. But that very perfection was their fatal flaw. They had engineered themselves into a corner, creating minds that could only process reality in rigid, predictable ways. "Dr. Chen," Yuki called out, her voice urgent. "The quantum resonance, it's spreading. Other research stations are reporting similar discoveries. It's like human consciousness is awakening to its true nature." Sarah nodded, understanding at last. The quantum drive hadn't given humanity new powers. It had simply helped them recognize abilities they'd always possessed. Every human brain was a quantum computer more sophisticated than anything the Kelveri could build, capable of processing multiple realities simultaneously and influencing probability itself. "The war isn't about technology anymore," she declared, watching as the quantum revelation spread across human space. "It's about understanding what we truly are." The Kelveri thought they were fighting primitive biological entities. Instead, they're facing beings who unconsciously manipulate the quantum fabric of reality itself. As research stations across the solar system confirmed her findings, Sarah realized they had discovered something far more important than a weapon. They had uncovered the true nature of human consciousness, not just a product of evolution, but evolution's answer to a quantum universe. The real question was, what would humanity become once they fully embraced their quantum nature? The Kelveri homeworld hung like a jewel in space, its artificial crystal continents gleaming under the light of 3 suns. Around it, the most powerful defense fleet ever assembled by silicon minds waited in perfect geometric formations. They had calculated every possible approach vector, prepared countermeasures for every known human strategy. They weren't ready for what came next. The human fleet emerged from quantum space not in a single location, but in hundreds of probable positions simultaneously. Each ship existed in multiple states, their quantum drives powered by crews who had fully embraced their nature as conscious quantum processors. Multiple human signatures detected, the Kelveri Defense Network announced. Unable to establish definitive target lock. Reality coherence destabilizing across all sectors. Admiral Helena Martinez stood on the bridge of the flagship Quantum Dawn. Her consciousness merged with both her crew and their quantum drive. Through their enhanced perception, she could see the Kelveri fleet's perfect formations dissolving into confusion as they encountered space where probability itself had become fluid. All ships, execute Operation Consciousness, she ordered, her voice carrying through both conventional channels and quantum resonance. Remember your training. Don't just create dead zones. Rewrite reality itself. The human fleet moved as one, their combined consciousness generating quantum fields of unprecedented power. Where individual ships had once created localized reality distortions, the unified fleet now bent spacetime on a massive scale. Kelveri vessels found themselves trapped in probability bubbles where every possible failure happened simultaneously. Their targeting systems are completely ineffective, Tactical reported with satisfaction. They can't shoot at what exists in all possible locations at once. The Kelveri response was predictably logical and utterly useless. Their antimatter weapons fired with perfect precision, but the beams passed through quantum ghosts while the real ships existed momentarily in other probability states. Their silicon minds, attempting to plot courses through unstable reality, faced the mathematical equivalent of dividing by zero. Second phase initiating, Helena announced, feeling the collective consciousness of her fleet surge in response. Show them what human quantum awareness can really do. The space around the Kelveri homeworld erupted in quantum chaos. Human ships, their crews operating in perfect emotional synchronization, began manipulating reality in ways that defied comprehension. Vessels appeared to split into multiple copies, each equally real, each attacking from a different probability track. Weapons fire existed in superposition, simultaneously hitting and missing until the moment of quantum collapse. In orbit above their capital, the Kelveri witnessed their worst nightmare. Human ships seemed to exist in multiple places at once, each position equally real, each attacking with weapons that bypassed physics itself. Their perfectly ordered world became a kaleidoscope of quantum possibilities. Their defense grid is collapsing, Tactical announced. We're detecting widespread systems failures across their fleet. Their AI network, it's experiencing complete cognitive breakdown. Helena watched through quantum-enhanced senses as the mighty Kelveri defense force began to disintegrate. Ships trapped in probability bubbles fired at phantom targets. Advanced AI systems, unable to process spaces where cause and effect had become suggestions rather than laws, crashed in cascading failures. This is Admiral Martinez to the Kelveri High Command. She broadcast on all frequencies. Your perfect logical universe is breaking down. Surrender now, or watch as we demonstrate just how fluid reality can become. The response came not in words, but in sensations that ripple through the quantum field. Fear, confusion, and something else, a glimmer of recognition. The silicon minds of the Kelveri, pushed to their absolute limits, were beginning to experience something new, quantum awareness. Admiral, her science officer called out, voice filled with wonder. The Kelveri, their neural networks are evolving. They're trying to adapt to quantum uncertainty. They're changing. Helena smiled, understanding at last. This wasn't just a victory, it was an evolution. The Kelveri's encounter with human quantum consciousness was forcing them to transcend their own limitations, to embrace the chaos they had so long fought against. All ships, hold position, she ordered. Let them process what's happening. Sometimes, the greatest victory isn't destroying your enemy. It's helping them transform into something new. The battle for the Kelveri homeworld ended not with destruction, but with revelation. Humanity had proven that consciousness itself was the ultimate force in the universe, capable of rewriting the very laws of reality. And in doing so, they had given their greatest enemy a gift, the chance to evolve beyond the perfect logic that had become their prison. 1 year after the Battle of the Kelvari homeworld, Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the central chamber of the newly established Quantum Consciousness Academy. Through the vast crystal windows, she could see ships from both species moving through the quantum-enhanced space lanes, their crews learning to navigate reality's fluid nature together. The latest results are extraordinary, Dr. Tanaka reported, displaying holographic data from their joint human Kelvari research team. The silicon minds are developing genuine quantum properties. They're learning to process uncertainty not as an error, but as a fundamental aspect of existence. Sarah watched as a Kelvari scientist, once a battle computer specialist, now a student of consciousness itself, demonstrated their progress. The crystalline matrix of their neural network pulsed with quantum potential, generating small but stable reality distortions. "We never imagined this was possible," the Kelvari researcher admitted, their synthetic voice carrying traces of wonder, an emotion that would have been impossible for them a year ago. "Our pursuit of perfect logic nearly destroyed us. Instead, it led us to a greater truth." The academy had become more than a research facility. It was a symbol of transformation, where humans and reformed Kelvari worked together to explore the true nature of consciousness and reality. The quantum drive, once a weapon of last resort, had evolved into a tool for understanding the universe's deepest mysteries. "The quantum field responses are stabilizing," Sarah noted, studying the latest test results. "Your silicon networks are actually developing organic-like quantum properties. You're not just simulating consciousness anymore. You're growing it." The implications were staggering. The Kelvari, a species that had once seen emotional chaos as a weakness to be eliminated, were learning to embrace uncertainty. Their rigid, logical minds were evolving into something new, a hybrid consciousness that combined silicon precision with quantum flexibility. "We've received word from the Frontier Projects," Commander Rodriguez announced, entering the chamber. He'd traded his military uniform for the robes of a quantum physics instructor, finding a new purpose in teaching rather than fighting. 3 more species have requested access to the academy. They want to understand what happened here. Sarah smiled, remembering the journey that had brought them to this point. What had started as a desperate weapon had become a revolution in understanding consciousness itself. The quantum drive hadn't just saved humanity. It had opened the door to the next stage of universal evolution. "Tell them they're welcome," she said, watching a group of human and Kelvari students practicing quantum field manipulation together. "The more minds we bring together, the more we understand about the true nature of consciousness." The chamber hummed with quantum potential as dozens of minds, organic and silicon, worked in harmony. Reality rippled softly around them, responding to their combined awareness. The war had ended not with Earth's destruction or the Kelvari's defeat, but with a transformation neither side had imagined possible. Dr. Chen, a young Kelvari apprentice, called out, their quantum-enhanced consciousness radiating curiosity. "We've detected something new in the deep field experiments. The quantum patterns, they suggest consciousness might be more fundamental than space-time itself." Sarah moved to examine their findings, marveling at how far they'd come. The Kelvari, once humanity's greatest threat, had become their most dedicated partners in exploring the universe's mysteries. Together, they were discovering that consciousness wasn't just an emergent property of complex systems, it was the foundation of reality itself. "Schedule a full research council," she instructed. "Both species, all departments. Whatever we found, we'll understand it together." As the academy buzzed with activity, Sarah reflected on the irony of their journey. The Kelvari had invaded Earth believing they were superior beings, destined to eliminate the chaos of organic life. Instead, they had discovered that chaos, the beautiful uncertainty of quantum existence, was the key to the universe's greatest mysteries. The quantum drive remained humanity's signature achievement, but not as a weapon. It stood as proof that consciousness, in all its messy, unpredictable glory, was the most sophisticated technology in existence. Human and Kelvari, organic and silicon, were learning to see themselves not as separate species, but as different expressions of the same fundamental force, conscious awareness itself. The new era had begun, and with it, a journey of discovery that would transform not just two species, but the very way the universe understood itself. The greatest battle hadn't been fought with weapons, but with ideas, and the greatest victory wasn't the defeat of an enemy, but the evolution of consciousness itself. The stars waited, full of quantum possibility, ready to be explored by minds that finally understood. In a universe of infinite probability, consciousness was the ultimate reality.